first half Sunday, but you had a lot of empty possessions, and that was the downfall, I guess.
The turnovers obviously has been a big key for us this year. We mentioned it at the beginning of the year, how important it was for us to take care of the basketball. With a younger team, you're going to have some offensive possessions where you get good shots and maybe not able to put them in or whatever. So you can't have empty possessions where you don't even get any shots. And the first half turnovers were a big key in that game, as it was in the 14-minute mark to the 8-minute mark in the second half. Those were two big runs that probably did us in.
Is the rise in turnovers attributable strictly to the schedule? Because early in the season there was pretty significant improvement over all the numbers from that.
Yeah, a little bit. In this league, night in and night out, you're playing against well-coached teams that are very good defensively, and they take advantage of any sloppy plays or any casual plays, and those are the things that we have to cut down. They're going to have some turnovers, just in general, the way the game is played, but you can't have any due to lack of concentration or sometimes guys trying to do a little too much.
Is there a difference between a sloppy turnover and a casual turnover? I sense there is.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, when you play we played two teams this past week that were playing at a very high level, maybe as well as anybody in the league over the last 4 weeks or so. The sloppy ones are when you're maybe going a little too fast or you're trying to do a little too much. Casual ones are when you just maybe lose a little focus and concentration. And those two are different, but they end up being the same. And again, we've had some turnovers that led directly to easy baskets on the other end. Virginia shot a high percentage, and some of that was due to our inability on the offensive end as opposed to just strictly our defense.
One of the bright spots of the game was Daniel. He continues to get double-digit rebounds in every game. He's really hitting them, especially on the offensive board.
He did a great job on the offensive glass yesterday. Maybe the one guy that played with the energy level to match what Virginia had. We've done that for the most part. It's interesting, in each of the last two games, at about the 14-minute mark of the second half, the game's in the balance. 5-point game on Sunday, 4-point game on Tuesday against Carolina. Those starters are logging a lot of minutes. One of the things that we need to get is a little more production from the guys coming off the bench. It's important that they understand that, because we're not as good a team with our starters logging 32-plus minutes, during the game. And so that's something that we need over this next stretch of games to make sure that we get.
I guess that'll be important against Maryland, too, because they go deep into their bench.
They're very deep, and what they do is whoever's playing the best gets to play the most that night. You have a guard that will play good one game, score 16 points, and the next game play 8 minutes. Because, like in the Clemson game, Faust played so well. So he got a ton of the minutes. Claire, their post player, has been averaging about 8-9 minutes a game. All of a sudden he plays 20 and has a career high. So those are, when you have great depth and you can go to different guys, that makes a big difference. So yeah, that's going to be a big key on Wednesday night.
Coach, when you talk about that energy level drop off at similar times the last two games, how much can you do to keep that from happening, and how much of it's incumbent upon the players to kind of police themselves? I mean, at a certain point, teacher starts to sound like Charlie Brown's, or the coach sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. Energy. They got to do it themselves at some point.
Well, I think, the one thing is, though, you have to be able to get some guys coming off the bench that give you that as well. You can't expect to play at that level for 8-9 straight minutes, not at this stage of the season. That's why at this stage, trying to develop that bench and have faith in the bench and have guys coming off the bench that maybe don't necessarily have to score, but hold the fort down defensively, make energy plays, make hustle plays, those type of things. Those are some things that we need right now.
What do you need to do better to defend the paint? Now, they got both Carolina and Virginia yesterday got a lot of points in the paint. Some of those came off transition, but not all of them. The rotations were all wonky against North Carolina with McAdoo's ability to get out in space and so forth. But in general,
well, it's different. It's different against Maryland because the points in the paint again, that stat is a skewed stat. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they throw the ball to the
No.
block and they score in the post.
Particularly against North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina, they didn't score one time in the post, not one post move. Yesterday, they made a couple post moves and to score, and that was about it. If that, as I try to remember, I'm not sure they scored many points on pure post up. But again, what they did is on some drives and some drop-offs to the bigs where we rotate and we don't get the second rotation. Against Virginia, the points in the paint where we got so stretched on defense. And that's one thing, you have to be able to pressure the ball, but off the ball, be able to still play your position defense. And we weren't able to do that. They got us stretched. They made a couple shots. They had us on our heels a little bit. And obviously, they're a very good offensive team. The Carolina situation, they went small. And we did a great job on Harrison in terms of our 4 men having to guard up one of the best 3 men in the league in him. I think he was 1 for 7 from the 3. The small ball didn't hurt us against their 4-man. Where it hurt us is the speed of their 5-man in McAdoo, being able to find creases and crevices in the defense and being able to flash in there and use his quickness to score. Maryland's a much different team than that. Those guys are big. I mean, I'm talking mammoth. WWF, I think, may be here on Wednesday for some scouting purposes. You throw those 4 guys out there with Daniel and Robert, you're talking, anywhere from 500 pounds on the block at one time. That's a lot of weight. So it'll be a little different, but we have to defend the post. And obviously, when you're talking about points in the paint, you're talking high percentage shots. And those are things that you can't give up if you want to be successful.
When you look at Maryland's shooting percentage, it's pretty high, and that's probably from those points in the paint with guys like Alex Lemon.
Well, they're a tremendous offensive rebounding team. They're the best rebounding team in the league, and that's going to be a big key in this game, is to limit them to 1 shot. They're big. They wedge you under. All their big guys have really good hands, so anything around them they end up coming up with. So limiting them to lower percentage shots, but more importantly, limiting them to 1 shot is going to be a big key on Wednesday night.
Are they a similar team in terms of what they do and kind of where they are in their development to you as there is in the league, would you say?
Well, I mean, I think the one difference is they have a top 10 player in the NBA draft potentially right now. They have maybe they've been able to have a little greater depth in terms of production off the bench. I think Jason will be full go for the first time on Wednesday, so I'm hoping that will help us in that. To get back to that rotation that we had prior to his injury, where again now he gives us the versatility of bringing in a guy who has started and he can come and play both the 2 and the 3, so he gives us good size and strength and athletic ability. There's definitely some similarities. There's no question about it. Us and them and Boston College are probably the 2 teams that are young, because there's teams that are young in this league that don't have the luxury of still relying on prolific upper class scores. Virginia Tech has that. Wake Forest has that. I just saw Harris has 1,500 career points. That's a pretty good career, you know what I mean? And obviously in the win against Miami, he was a big key in that. And you go down through some of the younger teams, and they have those type of players. And so, I think Mark has done a great job with them. I watched our game against them last year. Both teams are so much better and made progress that it was hard watching the game last year, even though we won, so it wasn't that hard.